Morning, intuitives. Yeah, not quite ready for work. I'm actually the afternoon shift today. There's a big tournament that I have to deal with in the afternoon. What fun will that be? What I wanted to talk about today is something that's, pretty well known amongst INFJs, but I think often misunderstood, especially by those that are not within our ranks, and that is our INFJ chameleon ability. INFJs are often called chameleons. What the hell does that mean? Are we being deceitful? Are we trying to wear a mask? Well, no, not really. If you think of what chameleons do, they blend in with the background to try to go unnoticed, which, when you think of it, is very, very INFJ, considering that we're introverts. We're very selective of who we open up to, who we reveal our true selves to. The vast majority of us have trust issues, so our chameleon ability is really for is, well, I think there's two reasons, but the first one, the more obvious one, is to try to blend in the background and go unnoticed because we just want to be left alone and we don't feel like dealing with what's ever going around. And this rings true in my mind from my past. Particularly, I did that in high school, because I wanted nothing to do with the cliquish, I call it cultish nature of that fake bubble society that is high school, and of course combine that with Chestertology, and it's a big mess. And I'm not going to get into that here, but for those of you that are like, what the hell is he talking about? Where I grew up, so many people from this area act like this area is the whole world, and the connections you make in high school must go the rest of your life because high school is for life, because Chester County is the whole world. And I rejected that bullshit by the age of 10. I knew that was just a total crock. So, but for anybody listening, you know what I mean by like why that rings true to my mind is that chameleon nature. When you're an INFJ, like a teenage INFJ, and you don't give a shit about the clicks, the surface level bullshit, and the gossip and all that, and you just want to kind of fade into the background and, as if you're not there, or try to be a ghost, that kind of thing. And, we carry that on into the rest of our life when something is going on where you just, whatever it is, you don't want to take part in it, but you don't want to be noticed for actively rejecting it. You kind of just want to fade into the background. And that's a use of our chameleon ability. Another one is, at times we want to hide who we are for fear of persecution. Because INFJs were different, and sometimes we feel like ending up and calling people out. Sometimes we have to gather information first. So our chameleon ability can allow people who are, let's just say, not so good to let their guards down. And they'll tell us, because people open up to us, who they really are and just how abhorrent they are. And then we can use that information later to expose them for who and what they really are and rip their ever so precious alabaster mask off of them, which narcissists particularly hate, and I've spoken about that in other videos. For me personally, that chameleon ability, being a witch, is important too, because in many places to this day, people don't really understand what it means to be a witch or a pagan, because their only understanding of what it means comes from Christian propaganda that's decades and centuries old, simply because Christianity doesn't want to compete with paganism in any bit of a fair fight, because the spirituality and freedom of it would further lessen their ranks, and they only have about 30% attendance right now. I'll talk on another video about paganism and Christianity. It's not the time for that. But in that sense, like most witches, I had to grow up with a veneer of Catholicity, and I know how to walk the walk. There's a priest at my work who has no idea what I really am. I can, walk the walk and talk the talk of someone who is, at least on the surface, you would say, oh yeah, he's Catholic, although we had a nice little debate yesterday, because while I am not a Catholic, I do feel bad for those Catholics that wish to attend the Tridentine Mass, as they should be able to, because in my opinion, despite the fact that I'm not of the Christian faith, I admit there's definitely something powerful going on at the Tridentine Mass that, in my opinion, isn't there at any other Christian masses. And the fact that that's being restricted when your ranks are dwindling as it is. If someone's like, hey, I want to be in this church, but I want to go to this mass and not that mass, and like, no, you must accept the new one we made up in the 60s. And then they go off and start a petite église, and then, well, really, like, you told them, you're taking away their tradition for well over 1,000 years and telling them to fall in line behind something a bunch of guys made up, and they're not falling in line. Surprise, surprise, when all they're asking is, hey, can we do this the way we've done it for, I don't know, I think since the Council of Trent, when the Tridentine Mass was made. I'm not sure on that. It's really not my wheelhouse. There's my sidebar for the day. But INFJs, our chameleon ability isn't to fool anybody, isn't to deceive anybody. More often than not, it's to protect ourselves. It's a way for us to try to remain unnoticed at times when we're feeling particularly introverted and we don't feel like engaging. We just want to disappear into the background and be left alone. At other times, our chameleon ability is to gather information, to do the right thing, to expose the machinations of those that seek to exploit and use others, which, as you know from my other videos, and I've given famous examples of such, will send us into that, all-encompassing INFJ fury, which is epic and shines a spotlight on the one who is trying to abuse others and calls them out in an epic fashion that just cannot be topped, particularly if we're talking about real INFJ rage and not an actor's portrayal of it, because no matter how good that portrayal may be, those people don't exist. Therefore, the actions that they're doing and or raging about aren't real. But our chameleon nature can, like I said, be misunderstood. It's not for any devious purposes. More often than not, it's just because whatever's going on we don't want to be a part of. And other times it can certainly be for other people's benefit when we choose to chameleon ourselves to try to gain information about others. It does kind of have a limit. We can't chameleon ourselves indefinitely. We can only do it for so long, particularly in the sense where we want to be left alone. We'll get to a point where we'll just Irish goodbye out of there. And in the other aspect where we're gathering information and somebody's exposing what a horrible person they are, we'll reach a boiling point and the INFJ rage will flow. So there's basically my thoughts on the INFJ chameleon nature. You can leave comments if you think I'm, stark raving mad, or if you think I'm half mad, or perhaps even right. But remember, INFJs, trust your intuition when it's time to use your chameleon mode. And if you are gathering information, remember why you're remaining silent to gather that information. Do not sell out your integrity and chameleon so deep that you become the thing that you're trying to expose.